Hello, Pile 1, and welcome to this reading on the trap that you're in and how to get out. Now, before we begin, I want you to know something. Pile number 1. I know that there's at least one of you, or a few of you, out there who have been here. At least up until I'm uploading this reading, because this is the third reading time that I am picking up on this specific type of message. Now, either this is a much bigger problem that's kind of like a pandemic where it's happening to so many people that's why it's coming up so many times in different ways and in different specific ways, but like what I'm about to say is something that I've been saying for what I feel is at least the last 3, maybe 4 readings, maybe more than that. I say this with love, and I'm not being mean. I'm not like I'm only gonna sound abrasive because I'm being serious when I say this, but I'm not like I'm being cheeky about it. I'm trying to like be friendly and casual about it. Don't take it so personally, like I'm being mean to you and I don't want you here or I'm angry at you. No, I don't know you. I just can tell that you need you need to be told things directly, and you need to end things with this person already. I've been delivering this message of walking away from the relationships that do not work forever, and I guess you just need to keep on hearing it, and I'm here to do it. You know, keep it coming. I'm not like telling you how to do things, but you're kind of clogging up the line, buddy. And again, I'm saying that with love, and I'm saying that in a way that it's like, I'm not serious. Like, don't leave. Like, keep on tuning in. I'm here to kind of help you through this as much as I can from where I'm at. Um, but it's just you would I there's 3 different piles for each of these readings, and I'm saying it's been like the last 3 to 4, so that's like almost 12 readings, and in at least all of those 12 now 4 or 3 of them have been about the same topic of leaving because we know deep down that that's what we want to do. Okay. If you're still here and you know that this is your pile and you're not even in a relationship, that's okay, because then what I just said isn't for you. Um because and sorry if this is their first time tuning into a reading of mine and you haven't received that message before and you're not who I'm talking to and I'm coming off abrasive and this is your first introduction to me. Sorry. It just like wow. Okay, that's I guess you're just still there. And that's okay because obviously there are very real circumstances keeping you there, and that's why you're there. You're making decisions based off of the knowledge that you have. What's being accentuated throughout all of these readings and in this one specifically is the very real presence of evidence in your surroundings, but also evidence to the fact that you should leave, but also the very real desire within you to want to do so. Now, that applies to all of you, whether you are the person, the people who I am talking to with that message of like, okay, it's time because I've been delivering this message for a while now, or whether this is your first time tuning into one of my readings and this is the first time that you're receiving this type of message, or whether, regardless of whether you've been with me before or not, you aren't in a relationship, but there is something that you understand you need to move away from. Welcome to your reading. That is, in essence, the core grasp of the message, is that it's time to go. But let's get into the specifics, because we start with, and if you are familiar with tarot, then you recognize what you're seeing here as a Celtic cross. And to just, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But here on the left side, this part of it is the trap, and over here, plus the inclusion of this card on top, is how to get out of it. So we're gonna move you out of the way for a second. The trap that you're in starts with the King of Pentacles. At the center of the King of Pentacles. And the King of Pentacles is a master of the physical realm. That can mean so many different things. It's coming up upwards, which means that, at least to some degree, where you're currently at, it's either something that you worked for and so you're glad to have it to some degree, or where you currently sit is a place of comfort. It's a place where you don't really beyond okay, it's gonna sound paradoxical, and I guess I'm kind of meant to reflect that back to you, how paradoxical this thought process might be and why you need to let it go. But it's like, despite the fact that I don't want to be here, this place is good. And that's kind of what the King of Pentacles is kind of telling me at the center of this whole reading of what the trap that you're in. It's the recognition that where you're at, it's to some degree you want to be there, but most of you is like, no, actually, I don't want to be here. And, you have all of this evidence, but it's comfortable. But it's what I've worked for. But it's where I've been, or whatever the case is, or some type of loyalty, whether to people or to your habits, whatever the case is. There's something about you just not taking on that initiative to want to leave for whatever reason. And how you get out, in essence, is the weighing of options, the weighing not only of what is possible, but weighing what's possible against what you currently have going. So if one of these pentacles can represent the comfort, the reason, the part of you that doesn't want to go, where the other one represents the part of you that does want to go, and holding place for both of these things, and then in weighing them, recognizing that one has more weight to it, one has more value or merit to it for you, and that's the one that you're really being guided to pursue. So let's just get into, in the past we have the Lovers, and that's really where it came through, obviously, of it being like a relationship that you really need to start moving away from. So again, whether you've been here before or you haven't, that's what that card is saying. Regardless of whether that's true for you, whether it's about a relationship or not, for all of you, what the Lovers is saying is basically highlighting all of the places, all of the avenues that you were investing yourself in, or that you're currently investing yourself in, and pretty much everything that you're currently committed to or invested in, and that's part of one of these pentacles that you have to weigh. So the weighing of everything that you're committed to against that part of you that does want to leave, that doesn't want to be here, that doesn't want to be committed to the things that you're committed to. Now, as a result of these things that we're talking about, of the comfort and habit, of the avenues that you've been investing yourself in, and the contemplating, the weighing of options that we have going on as a solution, as you're engaging with those things, what that results in, what that has the capacity to result in, is the Queen of Swords reversed. And the Queen of Swords upwards is someone who is clear and level-headed, and they have an understanding. They can successfully weigh the truth of their past and present against the possibility of the future. They hold the sword in defense of what they've learned. Like, not everybody can be trusted. There are certain things that we need to defend ourselves against, the boundaries, whatever the case is for you, against the open hand, which is, okay, although I am ready to defend myself, that doesn't mean that that's all I see. I do see possibility for union, for more, for community, whatever it is that you're kind of resistant to. The Queen of Swords upwards is someone who is capable to hold both things, successfully contemplate two things. Reversed, you see how the clouds are now at the top of the card, where here she's above the clouds, a clear head. Reversed, then the clouds are at the top of the card, and so it's an overwhelming of the mind, and it's a clouded judgment, maybe, or just a full plate, a full laundry list of things that you have to process and think about, a busy mind, basically. And so what these cards are saying so far is the processing of not only accepting that where you're at isn't where you want to be, but also contemplating what it would mean to move away from these things. It is going to cloud your judgment. It is going to feel overwhelming. It is going to feel like a lot. And that does highlight, it demonstrates why, part of why you're so comfortable here is because you do recognize that moving out of here is going to take discomfort. It's not going to be all sunshines and flowers. You can't just get up and go and then cut ties cleanly and then that's it. You do recognize that there is some work to be done. There is some confusion, some discomfort to work through, to sit in order to successfully move out of all of this. What's driving you here with these two cards, subconsciously, internally, is the recognition that there really isn't anything left for you here to invest yourself in, but also to gain from, like a relationship should be. And again, that's true whether or not this is a relationship. Your relationship to this thing, to this place that you're staying in, whatever the case is. Death here in this position is that idea that you do recognize, at least subconsciously, that there isn't anything left for you here. There isn't anything left for you to give, for you to put in. And if there are things, if there are parts of you, if there is emotions, time, energy that you're willing to invest into this thing, subconsciously you do recognize that this isn't a good place to plant yourself in, to invest in, because you recognize it's dead. It's no longer fertile to invest yourself in this space. Not so here death is subconscious. Over here in the conscious mind we have the King of Wands reversed, and the King of Wands upwards, he has his hand, like his oh my god, what is, I know it's a wand, but like it's a staff, there you go. He has a staff not next to him comfortably, but he has it on the ground, because there's this little like platform which is what his throne is on, and so his staff isn't on that platform, which would denote a relaxed person who's just kind of chilling and he's just kind of holding the pose. That it's on the ground, and his positioning of, he's not relaxed, he's not just sitting back, he's almost ready to go. It's almost like this picture that we're looking at is moments before this king is about to get up and go where he wants to go. The King of Wands is then a representation of energy that is very high. It moves a lot. It needs to move. It needs to project out and move where it wants to go. But the king aspect of it, a king, like, we talked about earlier, is a master. It's someone who does hold responsibility over wherever they reside. And so the King of Pentacles here at the center does denote that, like, weight that you feel to why you need to stay where you're at, where I've invested so much time, I've invested so much money, I've invested so much of myself here, and that's real. That is actual tangible stuff that you've put in, and that's a good reason for you to want to stay. The King of Wands, who's intuitive, because the wands are about intuition, our inner fire, represents the part of you that, although recognizes how much you've put into this thing that you're being told to walk away from now, you're also aware of the fact that you do want to go. So the King of Wands, when it's upwards, it's the restraint to not do the things that we want to do because of the responsibilities that we have. It's in weighing options, it's choosing, prioritizing responsibility and duty over what we personally desire. And sometimes that's called for. Sometimes we do need to do that for whatever reason. But here in your reading, it's coming up reversed. And when it comes up reversed, the King of Wands, I see him just getting up and leaving. He says, I don't want to be here. I'm not fit to be king. I don't know why you guys put me here. I'm done. I'm out of here. It doesn't necessarily have to be that sassy or that, like, what you're leaving. You don't have to be that abrasive about it. It just more so tells me that in your conscious mind, there are so many thoughts, so many things. If it could be like your own thoughts, or it could be things that you are, okay, because this position is all about the conscious mind, but we're receiving a wands card there, and the wands are all about intuition. So a wands card in this position tells me one of two things. It tells me that either you do have intuition, Wands energy in the mind is intuition. It's that third eye. It's being able to see being able to see with more than your eyes. And so two things that come up with the King of Wands reversed here is that, like, one, consciously, you do want to go. You do want to do like the King of Wands reversed and get out of this place that, you do recognize the weight of it, the heaviness of it, and you recognize your desire to be somewhere else, so you do it. Another thing is that since the wands are about intuition and the king is about a mastery, so a master of intuition, it coming up blocked in the mind because of the conscious position that it's up in, kind of tells me that your rational mind, your logical mind, does stand in the way, does trample out that intuition that you get. So that part of you that's like, oh, but I've invested so much time. That's your logical mind being like, but if you leave, you're going to lose out. You're losing out now because you're investing in a place where everything that you have, you're putting, well, maybe not everything, but whatever you're putting into this thing that's dead and over, that's not a waste. You're going to continue that. So I don't know why I'm coming across so mean to you guys. I'm usually not so abrasive, but here I am. So obviously you need it. So it's that idea of the King of Wands reversed. Those two things of recognizing consciously that you do want to go somewhere, and B, optional, this could be true for you or not. You decide. It's how your logical mind does trample out your intuition, and it doesn't matter that I want to leave because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, bro, like, what's the point of life if you're going to just continue this misery? Maybe it's not that existential or deep, but it's just you're prioritizing misery, and if again, it doesn't have to be that insane or intense as misery, but you're prioritizing something that doesn't give you peace over what you are recognizing does have the potential for peace. So that's kind of where the rest of the reading goes, where there is evidence around you of avenues available to you, options available to you, where your energy is better placed. The King of Pentacles also talks about like habits, staying in a place because it's just habitual. And so that idea of wanting to stay somewhere just because you're comfortable there and it's a habitual thing for you to do. Meanwhile, although you're recognizing that you're not super happy here, it's almost like the universe is responding to those feelings that you're having with like, okay, well, look at all of these options. And if you were to actually take the risk of pursuing those things, you will find that your energy is better invested somewhere. But I'm getting ahead of myself because in order to get out, like I said, we were gonna, start off with this card, the weighing of options. The King of Pentacles has all the pentacles, and the solution to that being the Two of Pentacles is this idea of downsizing, of going from all the pentacles that we can have to just the ones that matter. And everything that I said earlier about the Two of Pentacles, being the weighing of one part of you versus the other part of you, that's all true. But to get deeper into that, it's again that downsizing, that understanding that there is a loss that is going to have to be, you're going to have to go through some type of loss in order to succeed here, because of that recognition that where you're at, where you've invested yourself in, no longer is worth your time or energy or self. And that truth, I mean, that's hard for anybody to accept. And so the Nine of Swords reversed indicates how much effort you're putting to avoid that anxiety of that truth, because it's coming up reversed. Upwards, it's those anxieties just washing over us and us having the reaction to that anxiety, just feeling it in our bodies and letting it fuck us up. Now, if you are the type of person who has severe anxiety, or you have issues with anxiety and it gets really, really bad, obviously proceed with caution, because I'm hoping that if you are aware enough of your anxiety that you can name it severe, or it's been diagnosed as such, that I'm also hoping that you also to some degree have the tools to regulate that anxiety as best as you can. If you don't, then you have some work to do as to learning how to not only sit with your anxiety but regulate it if it's something that is prevalent in your life and in yourself. So tread with caution here, because the Nine of Swords is an indication of just how heavy these anxieties surrounding this matter are. And so we can't blame you, no one can blame you for not wanting to sit with those things, for putting all of this effort in not engaging with that truth and with whatever it means to move away from what we're being called to move away from. The Two of Pentacles then is also talking about kind of, or rather to kind of elaborate a little on what I was saying in the first place, of it being weighing what we have going on, where we're currently at, weighing all of that that's been true so far, versus not only the possibilities and the good things that could happen when you move away from it, but part of weighing all of that is also weighing, including in that contemplation, the very real anxieties and discomforts that are going to present themselves as we move away from this thing that we're being called to move away from. The Queen of Pentacles, in response to that, though, it's such a contrast. We have this dark energy over here with the Nine of Swords, which again is all about anxiety, so it makes sense why it's such a dark card. And then in contrast to that is this bright, divinely protected energy. And okay, there's so much that I want to say here, because these two positions, this one is yourself currently in this environment, and the Queen of Pentacles is it's the position that talks about what's in your environment, what is possible in your environment that you're very likely not seeing because of this whole trap that you're in. And what I love about her being there is that one, she's a response to the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles is your mastery in where you're at right now. And the position of king, regardless of how that applies to you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're at the top of this thing that you're at, or that you're the master, or that you're the richest, or whatever the case is. The King of Pentacles is just saying that this is one option that you're currently engaged in, and you're worried of risking whatever comfort this thing gains you. You're afraid that walking away from this thing means you're never gonna be able to have the comforts that this thing gained you ever again. And the Queen of Pentacles is actually saying, actually, it is, and it's actually gonna be better. And it's not that the king is better than the queen, or the queen is better than the king. That's not so much how I'm seeing it as. But because the King of Pentacles here at the center, at the very beginning of this whole reading, being a representation of the trap that you're in, and the Queen of Pentacles coming up in the half of the reading that's all about how you get out in response to the anxieties that you're having about leaving this whole situation. It's the universe being like, hey, actually, that comfort, that capacity for comfort or abundance that you can create there, that's yours to take with you from this place. And in fact, it'll follow you where you go, because that's you. You are the sunshine, you are the sun, you are the blessing, you are the treasure. And when you leave, that goes with you. The value goes with you. That doesn't stay here. What you created with that person, that stands on its own, and that's gonna have to be mourned and processed on its own, the thing that you guys created together. But you also have to recognize what parts of all of that are you, what was actually you, what would not have been possible without you there, what basically, and basically what they're going to miss out on once you're gone. And let me be very careful with that, because that isn't the best type of reasonings or logic to get behind as to why we should leave. It should never be based around the other person, and it's going to be more potent. You're going to be better equipped to commit to that journey if you do it for yourself rather than in views for the other person of like how they're going to miss out. Or because if you're looking at it that way, then when they wise up and they put in manifold effort just to get you back, though that hope that you're engaging with is just going to leave that door wide open for them to take advantage of, and then here you are still stuck in that trap. So you have to make sure that the movement away from these things is based and rooted in yourself and what you're doing for yourself, what there is to gain for yourself, what you yourself are then. It's a recognition of what you've invested in this thing that you're being called to move away from, and recognizing that those assets, those resources, are yours to not only take with you, but gain from, to then invest somewhere else. And again, that value, it goes with you. That value is yours. You are the production of the abundance, of the sunshine, of the light, of the goodness, of the love, whatever the case is. And that's not going to stop being true just because you're not engaging in a place that just isn't for you. Another thing that the Queen of Pentacles is basically saying is the evidence that you'll gain, kind of how I'm seeing it is you really only need to you just need to go there. Like, it's kind of how it's coming across, whatever that means for you. Like, if you've have this group of friends, or it can be your family or a friend or whatever the case is, or an activity that you go do with people or by yourself, or there's this thing that when you go and engage with it or engage with them, it helps you sit more comfortably in your empowerment, and it gets you clear mentally, internally, and you really feel empowered to move away from these things. And it's only when you move away from those things and you get back to these things. I'm not saying that this is true for all of you. I'm just giving you an example right now. I have a point, I promise. But the Queen of Pentacles is basically saying that you just have to go and invest yourself somewhere else, and that as soon as you do that, you'll actually gain the evidence of it. And that's why I'm saying there could for you be something available to you, an activity or a group of friends or a friend or whatever, that when you go and engage with that, you'll see just how possible better things are for you. You just have to go and engage with it, because if you're just here and you're staying stuck here and you're not going out and seeing what's available to you, then you're never going to see what's available to you. So you actually have to go out and invest yourself somewhere else. You have to go there. You have to get there. You can't just when it's internal things like this, it's not like hopping on the internet for a Yelp review to the restaurant that you want to go to. You have to go and see it for yourself. You have to try things for yourself to see how you feel about it, to see how what reactions you have to it and what you can make there. And again, it's about you have to go there. The Queen of Pentacles is basically saying it's out here, the options are available for you, but you actually have to come out here outside of that thing, away from that thing that you're being called away from, in order to actually see these things. But when you get yourself out there, you'll actually be, it'll be very, very clear that it's the Pentacles card, and in response to the King of Pentacles, it'll be that clear, where it's like, oh, there are, I can actually be away from these things, and in fact, it'll be a lot better. Why am I saying it'll be a lot better? Because the Queen of Pentacles has, I mean, they're both very focused on their pentacle, but there's something more. She holds it with both hands. All of her attention, all of herself is just hyper focused on her pentacle. Him, he has one hand on it. He's a little more nonchalant about it. And I'm not so much speaking as to like you being nonchalant about being in this space, but rather that here where you're at, it's not something you're fully, you're grasping onto with both hands. You're not fully invested here with both hands, because again, you recognize you don't really fully want to be here. And so here we have the two pentacles, one being the one here in the King of Pentacles, the other one here that she's focusing on. And when you recognize that, you know, you're not fully grasping onto this pentacle because you don't really want it, and you then focus entirely on the other pentacle and where you could place that, the abundance is not only like on the ground around her like him, it actually grows above her and it surrounds her and it creates this protection around her. So what if we're talking about something like, regardless of whether we're talking about something financial or physical, tangible, that you're needing to walk away from, the Queen of Pentacles is also saying that what there is to be found away from this is an actual type of protection. So if you are the type who has faith in some type of divinity, the peace that you're going to find away from all of this turmoil, it'll be from that divine source. And if you don't believe in that, then it's just, that's how serene and peaceful the peace away from this is going to create this barrier around you, that it's going to really help you recognize just how tumultuous all of this was. That this whole idea in the Queen of Pentacles of this, the growth that happens around you because of the focus that you have on what's yours to focus on, is to me that the part of the blessings that you can't really speak on, that you can't really, you know, put words to, but that you know is there, and it's basically the new life that you're stepping into away from all of this, and it'll just become so clear to you that there's more available to you. And then that truth, that there's more available to you, that this isn't all that there is for you, that there, when you do go out and invest yourself in a better place, that there are better things that you have to gain because you're investing in a place that's actually meant for you as opposed to some place that isn't meant for you. That'll be so clear that it's like it'll be a no-brainer basically to move away from these things, because the evidence will be so clear that the contrary is better. The Page of Wands reversed as the hopes and fears. Two things. You're hoping to move away from all, like, okay, let's talk about the page, him upwards first, or them upwards first. The Page of Wands upwards is a figure who is out in a barren desert with nothing but the clothes on his back and the wand that he carries. And I'm sorry that I keep on referring to it as a him. It, you know, gender doesn't matter here. The point is that the Page of Wands only has this wand to depend on out in this barren desert. Doesn't look worried though, because there's a recognition of what the wand is. And what is a wand but a magical tool? It, despite the fact that it's cut and it is no longer this branch, in its most mundane term, the wand is just a branch that has been cut from a tree and is no longer technically attached to its life source. But despite that, it is still blossoming. It's still sprouting life because it is now imbued with magic and it is sustained by magic. So regardless of whether you believe in magic or not, that doesn't matter. The point is that the Page of Wands denotes a faith in whatever we have faith in, despite our circumstance. So again, whether you're of faith or not, if you're not of faith, then the Page of Wands here is just talking about a faith in self, where you do genuinely believe that you have the capacity to move away from this and really to take on anything. It's a confidence. The Page of Wands is a confidence of self. It's a faith in self. And if we are of faith, if we do believe in more than what we can see, and chances are you do, then the Page of Wands is also talking about faith. It's just a genuine faith in what carries us and knowing that what carries us does carry us, and we're going to get to where we need to get to go because we are divinely guided. Reversed, then, it's it's the buckling of faith, whether in self or divinity or whatever the case is. And that's fair, okay? A crisis of faith, regardless of what that faith is applied to, is a part of having faith. And given, again, everything that we're talking about, that there is so much that you feel, or there's so much weight to wanting to stay. There's a reason for why you haven't, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. And so the Page of Wands is a highlight of that fear that you have, that you actually don't have what it takes to move away from this. That it's a recognition that you do feel unprepared, or like you don't have anything with which to move yourself away from these things and succeed outside of it. But also, because this is the position of the hopes and fears, as a hope, the Page of Wands feels to me like, okay, I don't know if you've, okay, no, that's a bad example. Okay, I guess not. But if you've seen the Prince of Egypt, when he murders the guard and he runs out and he's running away from the kingdom, and he's stripping himself of his jewels and everything that defines him as part of that kingdom that he sees he can no longer be a part of. And so the Page of Wands reversed is like the page running away into the desert, stripping himself of what binds him to his house, of what binds him to the past, of what binds him to this, in your case, this relationship or this thing that you're being called to move away from. So as a hope, the Page of Wands reversed is the hope, the want, the desire to run out of here, even if it means that you're gonna go out of here stripped of everything, stripped of whatever it is that you do recognize you're gonna lose as you leave this place. So despite the fact that the Queen of Pentacles and everything that despite the fact that you do have this evidence that you are going to succeed outside of this, there is a deep recognition that there is also something very real you are going to have to let go of. And that's going to range differently from all of you. It could be, if it's a relationship, and you do recognize that the individual that you're with isn't the greatest. It could be that in walking away from them, you'll then also lose the group of friends that they have, their family, maybe their financial circumstance. Whatever the case is, there's a recognition that there's something here that when you walk away from that thing isn't no longer for you, like you get to walk away with what you bring to the table, they will also get to walk away or stay with what they bring to the table. And that's very real. But as real as the fear is of losing those things, the Page of Wands reversed in the hopes and fears tells me that what's also real, however aware of it you are, what's also real is the desire to just run away. Even if it means just running in the night, stripped, like just with nothing but the clothes on your back and just dipping, just going, because you recognize that is better to some degree. To that part of you, I remind you of the message of the Queen of Pentacles, which is that although you might be stripped of whatever you'll be stripped of when you walk away from this, there is so much more to be gained out there. It's just a matter of you getting there. The final outcome with these three cards. The Empress reversed is point blank the lack of abundance. The Empress reverse does tell me that, like everything else has, but the Empress reverse is really an indicator, the anchor to that message of there is some type of abundance that this thing or person does actually have, and that by proximity you then gain access to because you're there with it. And so reversed, it's that idea that although the abundance is there, it's reversed. It comes tainted with whatever it costs for you to gain access to it. So it's an abundance, but it's one that is tainted. It's one that you recognize it costs too much to engage with, to benefit from. But what that means, to recognize that truth, that you don't want to pay the cost of it, it is tumultuous, the Five of Wands. Whether it's an internal no, oh my god, what with the word, an internal chaos, an internal conflict that's going on with the Five of Wands, or whether it's one that, as you engage with the truth of, okay, I actually don't want to be here and engage with this abundance anymore, or this individual who has access to that abundance, I don't want to engage with that anymore. To sit in that truth and or to speak it will create a conflict that you have to engage in. And it is going to take a movement away, an active effort to move away from this thing that's tumultuous and an abundance that isn't for you, towards where you're being guided. Because, okay, not only are we moving from a 3 to a 5 to a 6, so this progression, but also a shift from Wands energy to the Swords energy, which is the mental realm. And we've done that before with these two cards here. No, oh my god, I just realized we have two Kings and Queens. Another indication of this being a relationship, regardless of the genders involved. That the 5, I mean, the Wands are, I mean, I was going to say it's active energy, but they all are. The Wands is quick. The Wands, it's impulse. It's that initial drive to do something. And the Swords is to take a moment to contemplate something. It's to take that impulse and sit with it, if just for a second, to decide if it's a good impulse to follow or not. And so that idea of taking an impulse and sitting with it and recognizing what's at the root of that impulse. What do I mean by that as it pertains to not only your overall message here, but the final message is that you have to seek out the mental peace, despite, because what I'm getting with the wands and fire energy here in the center, and okay, this is only true for you, this is only for those of you who are engaged in a physical relationship with someone that you're being called to move away from, is you let that heat and that passion, sometimes you have a habit of letting that override what your mind is actually telling you about this person. And so the Six of Swords there is saying prioritizing the truth, what you actually think and feel outside of the passion, outside of how this thing, when you engage with it, how it makes you feel. So there's this idea, the Five of Wands next to the Empress, and the Empress reverse being an indication of this thing that you're being called to move away from. These two cards tell me that it does get a reaction of you. There's something that happens when you're around this person or thing or place or whatever it is, and it changes you. It puts you into this state, whether of mind or body or whatever it is, that does shift, that does, what's the word? It warps the truth that you feel outside of it and away from it. And the Six of Swords, that movement away, that separation, that creation of space between yourself and this thing that gets a reaction out of you, for your own sake of peace, for your own sake of mind. It kind of is a highlight of that Queen of Pentacles energy, where when you engage with those things outside of this thing you're being called to move away from, and you recognize that there are better places for you to invest yourself in, there is a peace that exists there. And ultimately, you're being called to prioritize that peace, that goodness that exists away from this thing, over whatever this thing gains you. Wow. That was crazy. That was wild. That was very, very intense. To those of you who have been receiving these messages with me, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this process. It really is an honor, as someone who has, been exactly where you're at. And that's why believe me, I'm not angry at you. I am speaking as sternly as I was and have been, because it feels like I am talking to a younger version of myself, and I'm like, sweetie, please, I love you so much. Do better, want better for yourself, because you are so much better than this. But when we don't know that, when we haven't learned or figured that out yet, it can be hard to know those things. So it's like, there's no anger or judgment here from it. It's just, there's some truths you need to hear, and it's time that you grasp them. Let's close out this reading with the mini Divi card here. Just a little departing message. We have Rattling chains ghost. It's time to be heard. Don't be silenced. So there does need to be a confrontation. There does need to be and whether that confrontation is with this person or thing, or whether it's a confrontation with yourself, this truth that you are holding, that you don't actually want to be here, that there, and if you are going out and engaging with things outside of it and you are seeing the evidence of good things that exist out of it, that truth, those truths need to be prioritized. They cannot be silenced any longer. They've been silenced too long. You've been silenced too long, and it is time for you to break those chains. My friend, I really hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye. All right. Hello, pile 2, to this reading on the trap that you're in and how to get out of it. Now, we start with the magician reversed, and what that tells me is the magician upwards has all of the ingredients that they need in order to create the outcome that they want. Reversed, then, it is not having all of the ingredients that we need in order to get what we want. Basically, what this is saying is that you recognize there is something that you want, an outcome you have your eye on or heart set on, but that you recognize you don't have all of the resources necessary to really attain this thing. One example, and it's just a really clear one, but it should not at all take away from whatever is happening in your life. But what example that this could be about would be like, you want a career, you want to make money, but you haven't gone to school, you don't have the degree. It could extend as far as like it is going to take some effort to get these things that you want. And that's what the magician reverse is basically saying. It's a recognition of not having what we need in order to get what we want. The way to get out, and before I continue, let me just clarify. If you know tarot spreads, then you recognize this one as a Celtic cross. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. What I do want to clarify rather is here on the left side we have the trap itself, and over on the right side how to get out. But this card over this one specifically is also part of how to get out of it. And so how to get out of it is either one, collaboration, whatever that means. It could be that what you're missing is something that you can learn from someone else. What you're missing is someone else. It could be that other people are involved in the creation of, in making this desire that you have possible. So kind of like with pursuing a degree, the collaboration could be like you going to school, you collaborating. You don't collaborate with the school, but like you engage with school, you register for it, you go to the classes, you show up, you do the work, and over time you graduate with your degree. So that idea of going outside of where you're currently at in order to get what it is that you need or that you want to get. To digress, because we'll get back to how to get out. To elaborate on the trap that you're in, the Knight of Swords, in the position that it's in, which is all about how we've engaged with things in the past. The Knight of Swords, can be about impulses and quick action, sure, because the Knight is action, swords are quick energy. But here, in the context of this reading, I'm really getting the Knight of Swords as action, yes, because of the Knight, but because there's so many swords cards in the rest of your reading. And because on the other side, with the potential and what's being created, the Queen of Swords, we have another swords card. If you're looking at it visually, we have this line here, flanking the problem in the center, and they're both swords cards, and the swords being all about the logical mind, the mental realm. The swords cards by themselves tells me just how influential, no, that's the wrong word, just your mentality, your thought processes, the way that you think, the ways that your past experiences have shaped the way that you think and engage with the world. That in and of itself is part of the trap that you're in. The Knight of Swords, in the position that it's in how it's positioned with the rest of the cards, really indicates to me how you have carried yourself through you've carried yourself logically. You approach life and all of your experiences logically, and you process them as such. And so this desire that you have, and recognizing that where you're at isn't where you're going to get this thing, that's part of that logical process of a recognition that logically you're not going to get what you want where you're at. And so that's all I really want to say about the Knight of Swords, is how he, in the position that he's in, represents your habit of engaging with life and or your desires through a logical framing. And what this creates, that habit of logical thinking, is one in which you then get mentally overwhelmed when you are asked to process your life and your experiences through other means. There does seem, through these cards here, just on the left side, talking about the trap that you're in, and I'll elaborate on why in a second. But they're all of a lot of these cards basically denote a rigidness to the way that you think and the way that you do things. You don't really like to go outside of your comfort zone in terms of how you do things. Like, for example, maybe you aren't so close-minded, or aren't so stubborn about things that you're not willing to go to new places, but you're only willing to go to these new places if you go with someone that you know with, or there's this criteria that you have, like it has to be this and it has to be at this time and it has to be with these people or these type of people. Like, it's not really going and trying something new because you're still defining it to some way to shape what you're comfortable with. So that doesn't necessarily have to be true, but what is true is this sternness to how you do things, where you're being asked now, you're being invited to recognize how, in order to get this thing that you really want, that you're focused on, it is going to take that you transcend this rigid way of being. So where is this idea of rigidness coming from? I want you to look at the symmetry, or rather the positioning of this right side. Oh my god, sorry. The positioning of this left side of the spread, where we have in the center the two cards basically denoting what this whole reading is about: the Magician reversed, and over it, the Three of Pentacles. The Magician reversed being not having access to the resources that we need to create what we want. The Three of Pentacles being the answer to that lack, where it's okay, go out and get it. It's out there, but it is going to take other people. You can't get it by yourself. Basically, that's what the Three of Pentacles is saying. And surrounding this, on this axis, from left to right, we have nothing but swords cards. And on this axis, up and down, we have only wands cards. So that symmetry by itself is really what's... And that three of these cards surrounding the center cards are court cards, is what's really denoting to me this, how you do prioritize the self in the way that you engage with life and with things. And that's not a bad thing. That these things are being represented by a king, a queen, and also a knight, it does denote like you have learned to be this way. You have learned what it means to prioritize yourself, to really place value in the way that you do things and how there's a merit to it. But the magician has access to all of the elements, not just the ones that he's comfortable with. And here in these cards, the wands and the swords are representing the realms of life, the aspects of life that you're comfortable engaging with. And that it doesn't necessarily have to be that what the wands represent, which is passion and fire, and what the swords represent, which is the mental realm. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you are comfortable engaging with your intuition, with your passion, and or your mental mind realm, your rationality, your logic. That could be true, and it's definitely supported by the cards that are showing up here. But really what I'm getting by these cards and how they're coming up is how there are parts of life that you're really comfortable in because you excel there, and you're really uncomfortable moving outside of those spaces, very likely because you feel like it robs you of that mastery. It robs you of that position of some type of an advantage that you have in the spaces that you're comfortable in, and losing that, just it's uncomfortable. But at the center, the magician, even though it's coming up reversed, does highlight how it's either the desire to be the magician for you, where you do want to be the type of person who can transcend beyond what you're comfortable with and engage with the things that you're uncomfortable with in order to create a more holistic, create a better, more elevated self. And so, again, the magician, when upwards, has access to all aspects of life, engages with all aspects of life, and more than that, can mix those aspects of life in order to create something new, in order to create not only just anything new, but our desired result. And so, okay, to get into what is in your subconscious mind that's really driving this desire for more, and I mean, that's really what it is. It's because okay, the subconscious mind. This card down here, that's what this position means. What's in your subconscious mind, and what's there is the Six of Wands upwards. And the Six of Wands upwards shows a victory that we can hold up and have other people admire. It's something we can show off, basically, like a degree. Again, doesn't necessarily mean that it has. We're talking about a degree here. It could be. There's definitely at least one of you for whom that's true, but whatever it is for you, this victory that you want to pursue, this thing that you want to then be able to see, like, look, I got this thing, I went out and I got this thing. So subconsciously there is this desire to not only attain this thing, but to be recognized for it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not gonna, like, there's nothing in these cards that's indicating whether that's a good or bad thing. That it's coming up upwards, to me, kind of does indicate that it's good for you to want to pursue this thing, or rather that you should grasp onto that desire to want to show it off, to have something that should, like, proves who you are to some case. I mean, a degree does prove that you're a hard worker and that you are a master in that field. But yeah, if you're smart enough to get a degree, then you're smart enough to understand that no degree, no matter of academic achievement is a true measurement of someone's intelligence and or value, because there are so many other ways to gauge those things and that really denote those things, and there are so many people who are incredibly academically smart but have no knowledge or know-how anywhere else. So my point being that the Six of Wands is a recognition in the subconscious position, highlights how that is a motivating factor for you, and to grasp onto that, that's okay, that you should, there is a matter of pride in this thing that you're trying to get, and that's good. It almost feels like you should be grasping onto this desire because it's a way for you to elevate. It's like keeping yourself hungry for more, keeping yourself desirable for elevation is what keeps you moving forward and progressing and growing bigger and better. So this card here, where it is, it's encouraging you to want more, to hone in on that hunger, that desire for this thing that you're wanting with the Magicians, so that you have that much more motivation and energy to transcend this rigidness that we're talking about. The King of Wands reversed in the upwards position it's in the position is the conscious mind. So what's in your conscious mind? The King of Wands reversed, it tells me that consciously you're ready to move towards this thing. You actually do have a clear mental grasp of what motivates you to go out and get these things. So it could be like a monetary thing where you just need to make more money. I'm sticking to that degree metaphor simply because it's the easiest one to really get this point across, but please apply it. Please translate that message however you need to. Let's say that the motivation is like, okay, I need to be making more money, or there's a certain lifestyle that I want to have, and this career will get it for me, or this is the passion that I have, this is what I really want to do with my life, whatever it is. Wands energy is really, it's what fires us up. It's that internal fire that really gets us going. And the thing is that when the King of Wands is upwards, it's not a restraint, but it is an intentional wielding of that inner fire. Because if we aren't careful and we are only motivated by our desires and internal fires and our impulses, that's not always the best thing. Kind of like, if something isn't good for you to eat, you're going to have that impulse and desire to eat it, but it's not good for you. And so the King of Wands upwards is that restraint. It's like, okay, I have the desire, but I have also the knowledge, the responsibility, the knowledge to know that isn't the best thing for me. The King of Wands, a master of desire, though, is like, okay, well then let me compromise, let me get myself something that, you know, is good for me, that it doesn't compromise my position as king here. I don't have to leave this place of knowledge in order to pursue this impulse that I have, or pursuing it in a way that doesn't compromise you, basically. Reversed then, here I'm kind of getting it as the place that you're staying in, which is again the place of lack, the place where you recognize you need more. That's where you're moving away from. The King of Wands reversed is that king now getting up and going towards what it is that he wants. It's the king restrained. It's the king taking his crown off and being like, you know what, I'm gonna go get that thing I want real quick. Don't worry, everybody, I'll be right back. Or maybe he's not gonna be right back. But whatever the case is, it's him kind of leaving his responsibility and duties to the side to go pursue this thing. In the case of this reading, the duty and responsibility that the king is leaving behind isn't so much a duty or a responsibility, so much as it's the status quo that you're currently in. Both the rigidity that we're talking about, but also the circumstances that you're recognizing you're ready to graduate from, you're ready to expand and move beyond. The Queen of Swords over here on the right side, in the position of what's being created by all of the cards that precede it. The Queen of Swords reversed is an overwhelmed energy. It is someone who has so much to process, who has so much on their plate that they aren't able to clearly see everything, and so they are relying a little bit on their biases to get through. Another way to kind of word that is maintaining certain positions because it's easier to maintain that position than engage with the overwhelming process of planning a different way of doing things. So kind of like living check to check, where, you know, living check to check means you only have enough for where it needs to go and very little else. And you're going on this groove with your hours, or, you know, however you're working, or whatever the case is, with your money, with your budgeting, and you have this rhythm going, and you recognize how, like, there really isn't room for anything else. There's that rigidity that we're talking about, but you know that if you were to sit down and actually put the work to budget your money a little differently, to work a little differently, whether it's like whatever that is for you, working a new job, getting a new job that pays you a little better, taking on a different set of hours or more hours, or whatever the case is, adjusting, making a plan to actually adjust and create a new way of engaging with this problem, so that you're not just getting by, so that you're not just overwhelmed all the time and just figuring it out as you go, but rather create a little bit of space for you to be able to breathe and relax into and create something better from. So the Queen of Swords reversed is how all of these things, the desire for more and the recognition that there is a rigidity, and despite the rigidity, there is a desire to want to go and get these things. There does seem to be a conflict there, where it's like, okay, just wanting it isn't enough because there's all of these things that I have to engage with. There's all of these things that I do have to kind of take care of. So maybe the King of Wands kind of was picking up on that responsibility that we're talking about, where engaging with this desire does to some degree mean either leaving that responsibility or some type of duty behind, or allocating less resources to it so that you have resources to allocate towards this desire in the pursuit of it. Whatever the case is, the Queen of Swords reversed is indicating that engaging with this desire and recognizing what it would mean to pursue it does create some type of overwhelm. And you're being invited to engage with that overwhelm, because the puzzle that overwhelm is, creating the order of that puzzle, you know, putting the puzzle together and then creating the image together. And I'm not, wow, if you're aware, the whole reading is called The Trap That You're In and How to Get Out. And this is like a whole little horror series that I'm doing for like Halloween. Doesn't matter when you watch it. If you didn't recognize it, it's a Saw reference, like want to play a game, right? And here I am talking about jigsaw puzzles. That was not intended at all. I just saw that. But the point is, you put the puzzle together. The puzzle's all chaotic, and it's chaos, and it's the image out of order. And you put that's the overwhelm, where it's like you can't see it clearly because it's going to take some effort to create order in order for you to see things clearly. But that's the point, is that if you sit down and create order out of this mess, then you'll be able to see things clearly. If you sit down and think and create new ways to engage with this problem, you'll actually find that there are avenues for you to pursue. There is space for you to create for yourself where you don't have to just get by. You don't have to lead this existence of overwhelm, of where this lack, it could be that lack that's overwhelming you, or whatever the case is. Creating a plan to get this thing could be overwhelming you, whatever it is. The overwhelm is a part of the process, and it's actually engaging with that overwhelm and sitting down and actually piecing together a plan, a concise plan of action that you can follow and commit to. And that might seem overwhelming, it might seem impossible, but the Queen of Swords reversed here, where it is indicating that yes, it is possible. It's just either you just don't know how to do it yet, or it's a lot of work. You do recognize that it is not only a lot of work to plan a way out, but the plan that you're kind of shaping up in your head, you do recognize that is going to be a lot. And that might be part of the overwhelm that's kind of creating this hesitation within you to want to engage, to want to pursue this desire. How do you get out? The way out. We have in this position, which is all about, it basically, this card is meant to represent you as you stand in all of this energy. The Four of Swords is indicating a lack of action. And more than that, more than a lack of action, it's how in that lack of action, in that inaction, you're contemplating. So that's very smart. I have to say that's very wise of you. Congratulations. It's so great that you do know how to spend some time to stop and think about how it is that you want to do things and really process these things. So kind of how we were saying, the Queen of Swords reverses an indication of the processing that you're being called to do, but how that does overwhelm you. And that might be to some of you that sounded paradoxical, because you might be thinking, well, all I do is sit down and contemplate. All I do is sit down and try to think about it, but it's either too much or it just seems impossible. Here's the thing about this, that the Four of Swords is coming up where it's coming up as a representation of you. Because in a Celtic cross, who you are comes in tandem with the environment. The next card over, which again is a representation of what is in your environment and what your environment is asking of you. So let's look at these two cards together, because you're being represented by the Four of Swords, which is all about repose and contemplation and inaction in order to contemplate. So not moving in order to think. And the Page of Swords reversed in the environment, it's basically saying that this card is coming up blocked is telling me that the environment is not conducive to Page of Swords energy. Page of Swords energy is moving intentionally to honor what we're contemplating. So basically, if the Page of Swords was coming up upwards, what it would be saying is, actually, all of the things that you're contemplating, that's good work. You're actually, the things that you're contemplating and overwhelmed by, that's going to create a really good plan for you to get what you want. But it's coming up reversed, which is saying that the energy, the environment that you're in is not conducive at all. It's not compatible with the things that you're processing, with the way that you're engaging with it. Again, because of all of the swords energy, because the environment, it's coming up as a reversed swords card. So all of this thinking that you're doing, all of this contemplating, and even if you're not contemplating because it overwhelms you, what the Page of Swords reverse is saying is that all of that stuff that you're worried about, or all of the things that you think of or can think of or will think of, really don't matter. And that shouldn't say that in the past they haven't mattered, or that you should chuck it all away and never think about, never engage with life or your experiences in a logical way again. No, but rather that in this specific instance, where it concerns this desire that you're recognizing, it's going to take more than what you're used to giving. It's going to take you transcending, being bigger, being different, not being different, but engaging with this thing differently than you have before. There you go. That's what I've been trying to say. The Page of Swords reversed is basically saying the way to this desire that you have, it's blocked off to someone who engages with things. And it's not that it's blocked off, but rather that, like, the way that you're engaging with things now, the way that you're used to doing things, makes you blind to the avenues to this desire. And there's that rigidity again, where that rigidity that you're comfortable in and that you stick to, it's almost like I'm seeing it like the rigidity being the way that you get home from wherever you get home from, the route that you always take to get to that place. And every day that you're walking or driving or whatever, you're like, oh, I want, I've been craving like a soda or whatever the case is. I'm just going with whatever comes to mind. And there's no stores on the way home. On your route that you're used to, there's no place for you to get what you want. But you know that if you were to go a different way, you know of a store that's over there that if you were to go a different way than you're used to, you could go and get that thing that you want. It might move you away from the direction that you're heading, and it might mean that you're not going to get home as soon as you wanted to. It might mean that you're not going to get to the place that you wanted to get to. And here we're going beyond that metaphor of just going home, difference of direction, going somewhere else. But the idea that within what we're comfortable in does not exist the things that we want, because if it did, then we wouldn't want for it because it's there with us already. The Page of Swords reversed is that idea that it's clearly stating it's enough contemplation. There needs to be action. There needs to actual movement, actual effort towards this thing. Because the thing is, you can think of every possible scenario and every possible outcome that could come from any action that you're going to take. And all of that contemplating is still going to be nothing but that. It's just mental matter. It's just theories. It's just a hypothetical. It's not actually real. When it becomes real is when you actually try and play one of those scenarios out and then see what happens. Only then is it real. Only then have you actually taken steps towards this thing that we're talking about. It's not just in your head. It's not just imaginative. It's not just internal. The Page of Swords reversed is an invitation to take the internal stuff and start to apply it outwards. Actually take steps. Actually take the risks. Stop thinking about it. Start doing it. The Queen of Pentacles as the hope and the fear. The hope is that as you move out here, you're going to find that there's a lot for you to be found. The fear is that what's to be found is completely different than anything you've had before. Why? Because this is the first Pentacles card that we come up. Now, yes, we did have the Three of Pentacles here. Yes, sure. I don't usually mention this when I do my Celtic crosses because I don't want a tarot reader to yell at me about it. But the thing is, and I don't know if you noticed it during the shuffle, but when I draw these two cards, I take the bottom of the deck and then I take the top of the deck. And for the rest of the cards, I cut the deck and then get the card that's there. And so it's not so much that these two cards don't count. Yes, they do. They're the bottom and the top of the deck and kind of give the overall gist of the message, which is why I like to place them there at the center. But what I mean is that these two cards are kind of like the title of the reading and the rest of the cards are that elaboration. And so that's what I mean. In the elaboration part of the reading, this is the first Pentacles card that we come up with or come up upon. Another way to word that, if that's just not making sense to you, is how I talked about the Pentacles card being an indication of how to get out and the rest of these cards being an indication of the trap that you're actually in. And that's why I talked about the rest of them. I was like, I'll come back to the Pentacles cards. And so if the trap that you're in is being denoted by the Magician, two Swords cards and two Wands cards, and the way out is being denoted by a completely different suit that we haven't been in, like that is not within the confines of the trap that you're in, the Queen of Pentacles is an echo of that. It's it's supporting that idea of what you want, and once you start moving towards it, it's actually going to take you to a place you haven't been to before. It's actually going to put you into spaces you might not be entirely comfortable in. But even despite that discomfort, there's merit to it. There's despite the discomfort, you cannot deny that there's actual growth there. There are actual results to you moving and being and engaging in this thing that you're wanting to move towards. So basically, these three cards, what they're saying is you need to stop contemplating. You need to stop worrying about all of the wrong things that could go wrong or all of the things that you could be missing out on. and actually start engaging with the movement towards this desire, because when you start moving towards it, you'll actually be surprised with what you find. It might not be so much that you immediately get it as soon as you start moving towards it. It could be that. Honestly, it could be that. I'm not really getting that for all of you though. It's more so that as you start moving with it, you're and as you're being guided by this desire, and it guides you into new spaces that you might not be super comfortable in, understanding that these new places, although it might generate some type of discomfort, the discomfort won't last, because what will prevail is the results that comes from that pursuit. So think of the discomfort, if it exists, only as a symptom of what's happening. And what's happening is you're pursuing this thing and you're being shown that this pursuit is available to you. Why am I saying that? Because it's the Queen of Pentacles upwards, and she's just a perfect representation of what happens when we focus on our own business, on what life and or divinity has given to us to focus on. So remember at the beginning, and this is for those of you who, for that message of the degree is about, where you want a degree but you recognize that you might not have all of the resources that you need in order to pursue that. Like you feel like you don't have financial aid, or you just can't, you don't have the time for it. The Queen of Pentacles, along with all of the other cards of like moving outside of that rigidity in order to create a little bit of more space for yourself, those messages, they're really talking about how there's that space is waiting for you, that the part of you in this current process that thinks, or that is holding on to like the reasons for why you can't do this. The Queen of Pentacles is saying, actually, yeah, sure, those things might be true, but what's also real, what's also available are solutions to those problems. So if you don't have the time for it, because this is just an example, just one example, okay? You're like, my current job doesn't allow me to pursue a career. Then it's time for a new job. It's time for you to take on the hardship of finding a job that's actually going to get you the pay and that you need, but also the time that you need. Whether that means taking on a job that is odd hours so that you can go to school, which is only open during business hours, or if it's that you have kids at home, like looking for someone that you trust to take care of your kids, to look after your kids while you're away. If it's that you feel you don't have money, looking into scholarships and finding that there are actual scholarships for just who you are, and who people who are actually looking for people to give money to go to school for. Things like that, where the Queen of Pentacles is basically saying that the solutions to the problems that you are listing in your head as to why you can't get these things and pursue these things and have them, the Queen of Pentacles is saying there are real, tangible solutions for the real, tangible problems that you have, that you're recognizing as obstacles on your way to this thing. So take advantage of them. So there's that hope and fear. The hope is that there are solutions. The fear is that, oh shit, there are actual solutions. And what that means is I actually can pursue this thing, and it's really just me getting in my own way and making up all of these excuses to not do it. That hope and fear of like, I actually do have it all in me to get this thing. And what that means is I have to go and get it. In the final outcome, I love these three cards together, because especially as an outcome to all of the cards that we've had before, because if you'll notice, I don't know if you noticed, just look here, we have no cups cards. And sure, we have majors, or it's just one major, right? Yeah, we have the one major, but in the final outcome, we have one of each cards from the suits that we've been talking about. One Wands card, one Swords card, and then one Pentacles card at the end. So there's two kind of messages that are coming through in terms of how I'm going to interpret first these cards as representations of the rest of the cards in the suit. So what I mean by that is that this 10 of Wands is a representation of your Wands energy, and the 10 of Swords here is a representation of your Swords energy, and the Ace of Pentacles here is a representation of your Pentacles energy. The second way to interpret this is as interpreting it as how we see it. The 10 of Wands next to the 10 of Swords upwards, next to the Ace of Pentacles. So those three specific cards and what those specific cards are specifically saying, I'll get to that in a second. But what I want to say before I get to that is how we have the Wands energy reversed, and we have the Swords and Pentacles energies upwards. And the thing is that The sword's energy so far has been regarded as the restrictive parts of you. The, because, first, with the way that the two core cards here kind of explain that rigidity that we were talking about, but then also that rigidity being referenced by these two swords cards, which, yeah, they're together, but in a Celtic cross, these two cards are always read in unison. So these four cards really talking about, and in their positionings and in their individual meanings, they all talk about, and we've interpreted them as, your mentality, the ways that you think, and how that is restricting your access to the things that you want. So, and we've recognized Wan's energy as the desire to pursue these things. So the first thing that I want to say with these three cards, the first thing that this final outcome message is saying to you, is that if you continue this hesitation, if you continue making excuses and you never actually engage with this thing, that desire, if you continue to snuff out that real desire with the logic, with the way that you think, with your comfort zone, then that's what's going to be generated for you. The thing about you is, you're so smart, or you're so capable. There's the Ace of Pentacles is an indication that no matter what you do, no matter where you apply yourself, no matter where you are, opportunities, new beginnings are going to come your way. That's what the Ace of Pentacles is saying. But what these two first cards are saying in that first interpretation of, like, if you continue to engage with life in a way that you're repressing your desires in order to prioritize your logical way of thinking, what you're going to create is just that. Is something that is okay. Because swords have thus far been a restrictive energy, then if you continue to engage in that restrictive energy, the results that you're going to generate for yourself are only a portion of what is possible for you. Why? Because you are engaging with life and with your desires through that restriction, through that lack mentality, to that scarcity mindset, where it's like, oh, well, I do want that thing, but this is as much as I can get from where I'm at, so let's just settle for this. That's what these three cards are saying in that first interpretation, where if you continue with that rigidity, then what you're only ever going to settle for what you're comfortable with, and those are the results that you're going to get. Small and relative in size to where you're at. So what that's saying is that you have to be really careful with where you're allowing yourself to stay mentally, because your mind and how you engage with it and how you're allowing it to stay closed or be open directly influences your blessings and what you're creating. So if you stop restricting yourself, if you engage with your desires more fully and allow for you to pursue your desires despite how your mentality restricts those things, how your mindset, maybe don't pursue so big. Maybe you could, reach for something smaller, or, I'm not meant for those things and it's just, it's too hard, it's too many steps, or whatever the case is. If you continue to engage with life through such a restricting mindset, please don't be surprised when you end up in a smaller life than what you could have had, because there is a recognition, an internal recognition, whether they're intuitive or, you just see the evidence of it around you, where you do see you have potential for more. Your life is meant for more. You are meant for more. But if you continue to only pursue things through that lens of scarcity that we're talking about, with that rigidity that the swords cards are reflecting, then that's all you're ever going to get. This desire that's so big, this potential that's inside of you that's bigger than the restrictions that this rigidity is creating for you, it's meant to break that rigidity. It's meant to break you out of those restrictions in order to show you that not only are you bigger than those restrictions, but when you allow yourself to engage with those parts that are bigger than your restrictions, the results will follow suit. The results will be bigger than anything you could have imagined, because you're allowing yourself to be bigger than you've ever been. So that's what these first cards are saying. It's basically, be careful of what you're creating with that scarcity mindset, because if you stay in that scarcity mindset, you're going to generate scarcity. The second thing that these cards are saying is the Ten of Wands upwards shows a burden being carried. So then reversed, it's us throwing that burden on the ground, whether it's going to be momentary, where we're just taking a break. We recognize that we have to take this burden home, we have to carry it to its destination, but we need a break. Or when we've thrown it over and we're not carrying it anymore, there's that recognition of like, okay, actually, I don't know why I was carrying that. I don't want to carry it anymore. I'm just going to leave it here. Whatever the case is for you, the Ten of Wands reversed is an indication of relief, of how there is relief available to you and how you actually create that sense of weight, that sense of burden that you place on yourself that you then have to feel relief from. So the Ten of Wands reversed, again, that relief that's available to you, whether you know it or whether it's just available to you and it's inviting you to engage with it. The Ten of Swords upwards, I'm seeing it as a shift from Wands to Swords energy. So I'm seeing the Ten of Wands as your desire, as and to you in this restricting mindset, all of those desires seem like too big a burden. It seems like too big a weight, and you would rather feel the relief of smallness, of safety and security, than risking the largeness of your potential and your dreams and your imagination. But look what happens when you don't engage with the desire and you only engage with the restriction. There's this death that's depicted here. There's all of this yellow and this wands energy, and even wands, which is about fire, is like yellow energy. And here in the swords card, it's all stifled out to just this little sliver in this image of death and pinning something to the ground and staking it there so it cannot move. What I'm saying there kind of does reflect that first interpretation that I was getting of, where it's like, you engaging with your current mentality is pinning your desires to the ground and not allowing them to move anywhere. But to elaborate it to the second message, how I'm kind of seeing it is, okay, you only recognize your potential, your desires as too big for you because you are staying within a mentality that recognizes you as small. And the work that you put in to move out of that mentality, to move away of that mentality that tells you that you are small, then you're going to actually feel relief around your desires because those desires are no longer being put through that lens of scarcity, of that smallness. So when you stop telling yourself that you're too small, when you stop telling yourself that you're not capable of these things, and when those thoughts just aren't a part of your vernacular, when they're just, you've done the work to put other thoughts in your head. Maybe, hopefully, you're putting positive affirmations there where it's like, actually, I am capable of doing these things. Actually, I can do these things and I deserve to do these things. That's the relief. The thing is, what these two cards are saying, the Ten of Wands next to the Ten of Swords, it's that basically you're creating your own misery. You are your own restriction. That mentality that you have. And when you stop engaging with that mentality, when you stop looking at your life and yourself through that restrictive lens, those restrictions, you're not the only thing that's liberated from those restrictions. Your desires, your potential, all of these things that the Wands energy is talking about, all of that is liberated too. And when that happens, when we liberate ourselves and our potential and our desires and our wants from the rigidity of our scarcity mindset, then what's created? So the Ace of Pentacles is basically pointing out to you, what are you creating? Are you happy with that? If you're tired of what you're creating because of that scarcity mindset, then put that scarcity mindset away. Engage with life in a different way. Learn what it means to want to be okay with wanting, to be okay with, okay, I don't have it now, but I'm going to work towards it. Being okay with not having it now, but pursuing the desire for it so that you can get it. To close out this reading, let's get into the small mini Divi card just a departing message. We have the ghost family. Stick close to the ones you love for maximum comfort. Okay, so what this tells me is you actually have people in your life that are trying so hard to reflect, to get you out of that restrictive mindset. There's probably people, like, if you're the type of person who is self-deprecating, and who that message was for just now, where I was like, when you stop telling yourself that you're not big enough, when you stop telling yourself that you can't pursue these things, that voice in your head, like, that's real. But this card is telling me that there's also people in your life that are trying desperately to show you, just like this reading and just like you are to yourself, trying to show you that that scarcity, that way that you look at yourself, which is restrictive, is not the truth. And even if there is some truth to it, where, yeah, sure, right now you don't have the resources for it, even though that might be true, there's all of this evidence internally from divinity and from now the people in your life as well that are trying to highlight to you, yeah, you actually do have what it takes to get these things. And if it's not that they're trying to highlight these things to you, what this card is telling me is you're not alone in this process, and that in fact, if you're going to have to use your discernment and intuition for this, but you can actually reach out to the right person or the right people for the right support that you need for this process. So, part of that could be that, like, there's someone in your proximity, like, to go back to that metaphor that we've been using, the degree, and you feel like, there's no one to babysit your kids. Ghost family could be like, there's actually someone in your proximity who'd be happy to take care of your kids for you to go to school. If it's about money, there's, like, actually someone around you who'd be happy to pay for that. And if it's not that much of, like, that, then it's like ghost family is, again, that recognition that there is something around you that's available direct, like, right around you to help you on this journey. Whether that's through tangible help, whatever that tangible help might be for you that you need to get to where you want to go, or whether it's support, whether it's just helping, a support and a love and a stability and people that can help you move away from this rigidity of self-deprecating, if that's what it is, or just self-doubt. Whatever it is, there are people, and if not people, then resources around you that are ready to help you on your way. My friend, I really hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye. All right, hello, Pile 3, and welcome to this reading on the trap that you're in and how to get out of it. Now, for you, we start with the 10 of Wands reversed as the center of what the trap that you're in. Before we go any further, let me just say that here on the left side, we have the trap that you're in itself, and here on the right side, an elaboration on how to get out. But these two cards in the center is the first one answering, in essence, what the trap is, this card answering, in essence, what the way out is. And although this first card, the Three of Pentacles, indicating the way out, is the second card that we come across in the spread, it's one that I'll talk about a little, but then I'll come back to it because the elaboration for that card is in all of these cards over here. But before we get to those, we have to get through the trap itself first. So okay, the 10 of Wands reversed is a card of relief to some degree, because the 10 of Wands upwards shows effort being put in to maintain whatever it is we're maintaining. This person is carrying 10 wands, and we can see their destination in the distance. So a burden to be carried, basically. So then reversed, it's that burden being, we're taking it off our back, whether momentarily for a break so that we can feel some sense of relief before we continue, or throwing it down with the purpose of walking away from it because we no longer want to carry it. So the trap that you're in, to me, the way that I'm seeing it here in this spread is all of the cards that follow elaborate on what I'm about to say, but point blank, the trap that you're in is your unwillingness, your refusal to engage with more than what you're comfortable with. There is almost like a refusal to strain yourself to put effort into anything. It's not so much that, to be honest, it's not like an effort. The Ten of Wands can definitely reverse can definitely mean that, but the way that I'm seeing it here, it's that there's something you're being called to put effort into because you know it's the right thing to do, but it's reversed. And so the Ten of Wands upwards is that thing you know you're being called to do, and it's hard to do. It's a burden that you have to carry. And so, reverse, the trap that you're in is your refusal to engage with this thing that you're being called to do, which you recognize is hard, but that you know is the right thing. And what this hard thing has to do with is definitely, to some degree, a relationship or relationships, or just the way that you engage with relationships, whether friendships, romantic relationships, whatever the case is. So the Ten of Wands reversed, as the trap that you're in, it's the refusal to pick up what you know you need to pick up. How to get out is by connecting, going. Okay, well, first of all, the Three of Pentacles as a location, and with the Ten of Wands depicting a location in the distance, the Three of Pentacles to me, as an answer, where it's at, as an answer to the trap that you're in, and how to get out of it. It's one, getting to that place, having cared, like the burden that you have to carry, being that thing that you don't want to do that you know that you have to do. The Three of Pentacles is you doing that thing that you don't want to do and getting the result of that. Whatever the result of that is, that's what the Three of Pentacles is, getting to that location. That's one thing. Another thing is very much so kind of how it's that idea of relationship, of collaboration with other people, and that is supported by the Five of Swords, which also depicts three individuals. And so here with the Five of Swords, in the position of the past, what in the past has helped determine this present, this trap that you're in. The Five of Swords depicts a cutting of ties, and a pretty severe cutting of ties. Um, in terms of, it might, if it wasn't outright brutal and confrontational and chaotic, then at the very least it wasn't amiable. It wasn't like there was some sort of butting of heads or something less than positive that went on to end certain relationships. And the thing is that the you were wielding the weapon, the sword that severed the tie. And so, what I'm seeing the Ten of Wands reversed as is the Ten of Wands reversed being relief, a lightened load. That load that you are relieving yourself of is the load of the responsibility of relationship, or the load of accountability of how you've engaged in relationships in the past. Whatever the case is, to continue, and actually before we continue, to kind of go back to the Three of Pentacles being how to get out of it, it's then the Three of Pentacles shows collaboration, and so effective communication and a union of goal within people, like between people. And we see three people in the Three of Pentacles, and we also see three people in the Five of Swords, which shows you in the past severing ties with other people. So that the three people is paralleled in both cards kind of gives me that idea of there might be a need to make amends, either with individuals that you know you've done wrong or whatever the case is, and that's part of that burden that we're talking about in the Ten of Wands, or it's adjusting your behavior so that you're not engaging with future relationships the way that you have in the past. To move forward into the waking mind, we have the Queen of Wands reversed, and the Queen of Wands upwards is a master of intention. They know what they want, and they have the capacity to get what they want. And more than a capacity to get what they want, they have a faith in that, in themselves and beyond themselves, in divinity and whatever you believe in. in your in the capacity of yourself to get it, and in the capacity of divinity to deliver it to you, whether you are a person of faith or not. The Queen of Wands reversed to me is indicating a a confusion of direction, a confusion of intention, or a lack of direct intention. I digress. I want to come back to that because that this message of a lack of direction or intention, of clear intention, what's rooted or what's at the root of that, we have in the subconscious mind the Queen of Cups reversed. And the Queen of Cups is our capacity to alchemize emotional energy into basically whatever we need it to be, but in essence, something better than, or something to our benefit. So, and this could be with all emotions, just some examples here. The Queen of Cups can alchemize her joy into, like, most people struggle with joy for whatever reason, like self-deprecation, self-consciousness, like perfectionism, that you don't allow yourself to be happy. So like the Queen of Cups can alchemize her joy into something that she can enjoy. So it's, she takes those anxieties and those things that want to come and take that joy from her within herself, and she can protect that emotion so that she can benefit from it. Sadness, one of my favorite examples in that case would be like the Queen of Cups is someone who can take that sadness that they're feeling and alchemize it into energy for them to use somewhere else. Motivation, like some people put it into their art, or some people just put it into their work, or they don't just allow that sadness to weigh them down, and sometimes that's called for, of course. But the point of the Queen of Cups is that she can alchemize her emotional matter into something that benefits her. Reversed, then, it's not that you lack the capacity to alchemize emotion. It's that either you're not really knowing how to do that, or the emotions that you're currently going through are overwhelming you and your capacity to alchemize it into something else. And because there's this disarray in the subconscious mind with the Queen of Cups reversed, where there's this, I'm not calling you a failure, but like, because the emotions that are present aren't being properly handled and alchemized the way they're supposed to be, it's resulting in a lack of clear intention. You don't really know what you're feeling because you refuse to sit with those feelings, and so you don't really know what you want, because what you want is pretty much determined by what you feel, and what you're feeling is kind of a mess because you're not really sitting with the things that are calling your attention. Part of that being this thing that we're talking about here, the severed ties that you've had in the past that you kind of need to address and work on because of the feelings that you're having about it. The Nine of Pentacles reversed, in essence, is you not getting the outcomes that you want, because the Nine of Pentacles upwards shows wealth, shows someone who's benefiting from the fruit of their labor. So they've worked hard for their wealth and they've been able to build upon that wealth, and so they have this beautiful home and this beautiful garden and the beautiful clothes, and they get to show off and they look great in this portrait of themselves in their wealth. So then reversed in the position of the future that's being created by the present that we're currently in. So because we're stuck in this trap, we aren't able to access the wealth that we have the potential to access, basically the wealth that we could create if we were to get ourselves free of this trap. And so this wealth that we're talking about here, it's definitely in regards to relationships. So if it's that, deep down, as I'm reading these cards for you, that it's about a specific person or a specific group of people that you need to make amends with and fix things with, then the Nine of Pentacles upwards would be the fruit of that labor of you, whether it's just making amends and you guys can't reconcile, but at least there's forgiveness and there's closure and there's explanations and all that communication, and maybe then there's wealth in that. or if it's possible that there can be a reconciliation and there can be a reunion between you guys, then the Nine of Pentacles would be the fruit of that labor. And if it's not possible, if there aren't individuals, if it's like the way that you engage in relationships and you know that this is something that you do, then the fruit of that labor obviously would be the wealth of, since you've worked on yourself and your shortcomings in relationships, then you can apply that work and those, put those things into practice in your future relationships, and that's the fruit of this labor. So the Nine of Pentacles reversed being, if we don't get out of this trap, we don't have access to the fruit of our labor. Okay. How do we get out? The Magician reversed and the Empress. In these two positions, to talk about them a little. If this over here on the left side is the trap that you're in, the Magician, that position is talking about, it's basically the card that represents you in all of this energy. And the next card, where the Empress is, the position is that of the environment. So what the environment is asking of you, or what is in the environment for us to be aware of in regards to like the context of the reading. So to digress a little bit, the Magician reversed is the recognition that we don't have everything that we need to get what we want. That the Magician is coming up in the first place means that we have the capacity to get our desired results and get what we want, but the reversal indicates that right now we don't have everything we need to get what we want. The Empress is abundance, and so in your environment there is available to you what you need to get, but it's about you actually engaging with it in a way that's intentional, because the Magician is intentional. So to tie that into the rest of the reading, the Magician reversed is, or rather the Magician that it's here, is your recognition, your desire to not only want to elevate yourself and be a better person, but it's a desire that you do want to create something better for yourself, whether that's, you know, those examples that we gave, whether it's you making amends with people to whatever those ends are, whether it's reconciliation or not, or creating a better way to engage in relationships with. The Magician is your desire to want to create that thing. The reversal, though, is why you can't create it, which is the trap that you're in. It's because you're not engaging with the work that it's necessary for you to fix these things. You're not actually sitting with, you know, either the truth of what happened, your feelings about the matter, the accountability that's necessary. Maybe it's all of those things. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. The point is that the Magician reversed is basically that kind of like I don't know, when you try to do something on your computer or on your app and it, or on your phone, and the app gives you like a notification like, oh, you can't do that because you had to go do this thing first. The Magician reverse is basically saying, like, before you get this thing that you like, in order to create the desired outcome, you need all the ingredients, and you don't have all the ingredients. And the ingredient that you're missing is, again, that thing that you're denying here, that thing that you're seeking relief from, the accountability, the truth of the matter, the truth of your feelings on the matter, whatever the case is. That thing that you're denying is or the things that you're denying are the ingredients necessary to create these outcomes that you're looking for. The Empress in the environment also tells me, and you'll need to apply this, if you'll know if it's true for you, and if it's not, then just leave it. But the Empress does to me indicate a need or a benefit to applying tenderness to the matter. And if you're an abrasive person and you struggle with tenderness, then it's basically just saying you need to be more conscious of the way that you come across, so that you can be better understood by the people that you're trying to be understood by, because your abrasiveness or whatever it is, it does get in the way of your communication. So the Empress, that indication, that advice to be mindful of who it is that you're talking to, of what it is that you're handling, and to act accordingly. In the hopes and fears, we have the card of relationships, the Two of Cups, of reciprocal relationships. So across the board for all those three scenarios, if it's that the work is offering amends for the purpose of just offering an explanation not to be forgiven, but just because that's what you know you need to do. That's part of your accountability, and you know that it's not going to gain you any forgiveness, but you know that you owe it there. The Two of Cups is then indicating the hope that you want for full forgiveness, but the fear that you know who this person is, the fear that you kind of do know that that's not possible. Or it's not so much a fear of that person, but just you know that person well enough to know what the outcome is going to be here. And so that the Two of Cups is coming up as the hopes and fear, it's kind of pointing out that your hopes and fears are truly like irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, because the point is the work that you're being called to do is to take accountability, is to be honest with yourself about what went down in the severing of those ties. And part of that is like, because you're being moved to make amends to, and if it's not with those specific person, then in the future, then it's like the Two of Cups is basically saying it's that fear of you actually having to show your cards, of you actually having to be vulnerable about all of this, either to the individuals that you owe it to, or to the individuals who will come into your life in the future, and you'll have to like share these things about yourself with, you'll have to be vulnerable with. So the Two of Cups, in essence, in the hopes and fears position, is intimacy, where you're hoping for intimacy, whether with these individuals or the people in the future that you'll welcome in relationships, but you also fear it. You're afraid of being perceived by this person, by these people. And that's, I think that's like a perfect, rather a very natural fear to the work that you're being called to do, because the work that you're being called to do, again, keep on repeating it, it's all about relationships, and relationships for the most part is us being honest about ourselves with other people. That is at its core vulnerability. And when we take that a degree further, where we can share deeper parts of ourselves with people that we deem, that we trust and we feel comfortable around, then that's intimacy. That's creating intimacy. That's something deeper. And intimacy is a deeper state of vulnerability, because it's a deeper state of trust. And so this hope and fear here, where like you're being called to work on the way that you engage with people, and so it makes sense that at the core of that is this fear of intimacy, but also, of course, the hope for it. And that's the paradox, right, of intimacy, the fact that we so deeply crave it, but also deeply fear it. And here, this whole reading is basically talking about how, okay, if that you crave intimacy cannot be denied, and that you fear intimacy can also not be denied. And attached to your fear of intimacy, which is natural in all people, there's also the reality of what's gone on in your past, which has left you feeling less than ideal, less than satisfied with your capacity for intimacy. So you're having a lot more work to do than the rest of us are, who aren't carrying these things that you are. But the thing is, okay, well, it's not that, well, you did it, so you did your bed, so now lay in it. But it's kind of that recognition of like, in order to get what you want, it is going to take whatever you're being asked to put in, whether it's accountability, honesty, explanations, a changed behavior, whatever the case is. You can't just stay who you are now and expect for you to get the things that you want, because the things that you want are outside of the purview of where you're currently at, the trap that you're in. So, okay, I'm rambling. To continue, the final outcome, we have the Seven of Pentacles, the Two of Swords, and the Five of Cups reversed. The Seven of Pentacles is taking stock, or it's the result, it's us reaping what we sow. So kind of like I was saying, like, it's not about, you did your bed and you made your bed and now you have to lie in it, right? That's pretty much what the Seven of Pentacles is all about. It's like, however we made our bed is how we have to lay in it. Whatever we put down is what we have to pick up. Whatever we plant is what we have to sow. And so the Seven of Pentacles is all about the product of our efforts. So far, your efforts have been less than ideal in terms of your relationships, and so you are currently sitting in a space where the space that you're in is a result of the way that you've engaged in relationships in the past. The Two of Swords is then an active contemplation of that truth. It's suspending all movement, suspending all anything else to place attention, to place focus on whatever needs to be processed, whatever is at hand. And at hand right now is your dissatisfaction with where you're at, which again is a result of what you've done in the past, your engagement with certain relationships or relationships as a whole. And the Five of Cups reversed is, in essence, accepting that we can no longer stay where we've been because of what's at stake, which is what is potential. There is potential for something, for new relationships, whether it's reconciliation with people in the past or potential relationships in the future. Those relationships are in jeopardy if we continue to stay here in this space that we're currently in. So the Two of Swords does, take on what I just said. It's an active contemplation. All of that still applies. But these three cards also take on an additional message where the Two of Swords, because it's in the center and it's so symmetrical, the Two of Swords is a figure weighing two options, and she is flanked by two cards, one of them being the result of the product of our labor, right? The Seven of Pentacles, the thing that we're dissatisfied with because of what we've done. That's one thing for us to contemplate. And on the other hand, what's there to contemplate is the potential that exists, whether in reconciliation or things in relationships in the future that you can build. And although, what I just said is basically what I said in the first interpretation, with this added interpretation, how I'm seeing it is kind of like you can have one but not both. You can have one or the other. You're either going to continue in this cycle where you don't change anything and you continue to plant the same seeds and you continue to get the same results from the same thing that you keep on doing, or you recognize that you are jeopardizing potential by continuing the cycles and moving into new cycles, even if that might mean some type of loss, whether that's a loss of pride because you have to go and say sorry, or whether that's like a loss of a relationship or relationships that you are currently engaged in, for whatever reason. Like one scenario that comes to mind is you started hanging out with a new group of friends, or you got into a relationship with someone who you're now seeing isn't the best for you, or who took you and made you someone you weren't really, or who brought out the parts of you that you're not super proud of. And so there's that like idea of, in order to go engage with this thing that and you need to go apologize, like these people that you need to go apologize to, or whether it's about, and then in doing so moving away from these people you need to move away from, so again losing that, or if it's a loss of the things that you've currently engaged with relationship wise. Like in that case, one scenario, and this doesn't have to be true for you, but just basically it's like the ways that you've engaged with relationships so far that isn't working, that's what has to go. And maybe there's a comfort to that you're struggling to let go of, but along with the recognition of that thing that you don't want to let go of, there's also the recognition that you can't get what you want by doing it this way, and so you are jeopardizing potential relationships by continuing to engage with relationships the way that you currently are and have in the past. So again, you can have one but not both. You can either not change and continue things and continue to be unhappy, or you can engage, recognize that you're jeopardizing potentials and seek new ways, and then lose the way that you currently do things. So you can have one but not both. To close this reading, let's get the mini Divi card, just a departing message. Horde of Ghosts. You don't have to go it alone. Choose a quest buddy, or 3. So, okay, there has to be something about the 3, because we got the whole idea of the 3 people in the beginning. I don't know. Maybe there is a group of friends that like you've left them a duo and you guys were like a power throuple or whatever. And it's, you do recognize that like they were right, and this is just for some of you. Like maybe part of the movement, like the reconciliation is you going back and apologizing and be like, yeah, you guys were right, and that being like in a sense, a bit of a loss of pride, because it's like, damn, but it gains you so much more. Like the loss is so much smaller than what you have to gain. um and I think that's one of the things, or that's kind of like my main takeaway from Horde of Ghosts, this bunch of ghosts, is that there's hordes of blessings, hordes of relationships, hordes of like there's good things that are waiting for you outside of all of this work that you're being called to do. Like you're being called to release these burdens and to process them in order to release them so that you can benefit from the hordes of relationships, potential relationships in the future that are there for you. And if it's that there is reconciliation that's possible for you, the hordes of blessings that are waiting for you there with these people. Yeah. My friend, I hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye.